Hello, everyone. This is Ed Mabry with FaithByReason.net.
Hi, and I'm Jerry Girardo with Lighthouse Christian Church in Novato. Good to see you, Ed.
Good to see you too, Pastor. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. When you refer to me as pastor, all of a sudden I gotta pretend like I'm somebody else, right? No,
Yeah,
no.
we'll just keep it to
Just
Jerry.
Jerry's great. Followers of Christ is great.
Right.
Believers in Jesus Christ is perfect. So, yes.
And so, speaking of following Christ, we are. I want to talk a little bit about the message that you had have this week about preparedness, which is just very timely in these times where we just really need to be more prepared, so that we will react better to circumstances as they happen. So I want to know what led you to this message. Well, how do you believe, or why do you believe that God put this message on your heart, and what exactly does it mean as Christians for us to be prepared?
Great, great. Thanks for the question. Yeah, it was really, as so often it is, an extraordinary thing. Preparing myself, praying for the messages that God would want us to deliver each week. And I was really on track this last Sunday. After church, I got home and I'm working on the next message and had some real exciting things I was wanting to share. And then I just had a pause in the spirit and I set it down and I came back to it. And when I came back, the Lord had really focused me on this issue of preparation. And I was just thinking about how he prepares us for the things that are coming. Sometimes we don't feel like we're always so prepared, I'll tell you that. But he actually is working in our lives to prepare us and to clue us in so that we can be better prepared for the things that we face, not only so that we can help ourselves, but so often so that we're prepared to help others, and it's a story of Christ coming. Preparing and then living his life here and laying down his life in accordance with God the Father's plan for us so that we would be redeemed. So Christ was perfectly prepared to do all of those things and to sacrifice himself so that he would save all who would call on his name. So anyway, as I was thinking about this on last Sunday and preparing for the message, the Lord actually brought me to other things that took place several years ago when we had fires in the Tub Fire and other fires in this area, and there was an evacuation, and our church got the call in literally first thing in the morning on a Monday morning, and there's people in distress. There's people evacuating from Sonoma in the heart of the night. They're looking for a place to stay. So we rushed down to open the church, and we were able to house 150 people and take care of them, all ages, over a 10-day period as it turned. We didn't know when it started how long it would last, how many people would come. And then we coordinated with the church next door and the other church that was using the same property as us and with the authorities to be a resource. And so I was just praying and thinking about that too in this season. And then as I started preparing that message, Ed, the very next morning I wake up and I look at the news, and in Santa Rosa, there's another fire with huge evacuations. Yeah. And it was just an affirmation that the Lord wants us to be better and further prepared in our lives, in our family lives individually for things that might happen, things that will happen, and also as a church community to be a greater resource for others. So, and then we ended up in a meeting on Wednesday because a number of us were thinking along the same lines. You know how the Holy Spirit puts you on the same page. And we had a meeting about emergency preparedness and other things we can do to be that resource and be better prepared for evacuations, for those who might be displaced, homeless in a moment, or just need other help. And we just had a great and extraordinary meeting with great ideas, great connections in the community, and things that we can do as a church to set up a food pantry and to have other provisions and bedding and things for people to use if they're really displaced within our own church community, within the Nevada community and beyond. So all these things started happening, and there were these unbelievable affirmations this whole week. Oh my goodness, yes, this is the message. So when we got to the message, the thing that the Lord had me focus on were two really well-known characters, people in the Bible. Noah, who in faithfulness responded. Hebrews 11:7 says, by faith, Noah, when warned by God about things not yet seen, in reverence prepared an ark to save his family. And we know he saved also all these species.
Yeah.
He saved through God, through being faithful to God. God saved the human race and saved all these species through the faithfulness of this one man who did set about to prepare and build an ark of all things, was over so many years. And it was an extraordinary time of preparation. And because of that, God blessed Noah and his family and protected them and saved them. The second person that I focused on with the message that God brought my attention to was the story of Joseph in the Bible, who is a favorite of so many of ours because of his extraordinary life. And when he was allowed to interpret Pharaoh's dream, God had given Pharaoh a dream that Joseph was the only one who could interpret it, and he did interpret it. And it was about 7 years of abundance and then 7 years of devastating famine in the land through that whole region. And so when he interpreted it, Pharaoh understood it, believed the interpretation, and put Joseph in charge, wise man, so that Joseph could prepare to protect and bless the Egyptians and even others from the surrounding area and his own family. And Ed, you know the story as well as I do. And one of my favorite verses in the whole Bible is Genesis 50:20, when Joseph has this extraordinary conversation with his brothers who are still very fearful of him because he has provided for them because they had no supplies and he had all these storehouses of grains and foods. And they came to him not knowing he was in charge of Egypt and the provisions. But what he tells them is, what you intended for harm, what they did to him years before to sell him into slavery, almost kill him. Yeah. Then they thought, better, we'll just sell him into slavery. Thank you very much. And Joseph, this trials that and the refinement that took place in his life, what you intended for harm, he says, God intended for good. And for the saving of many lives, even their very lives, and effectively all the 12 tribes of Israel, because that's who his brothers represent. Right. And so it's amazing God's provision, but it just focused us, and we talked about how preparation always precedes blessing. It's amazing how God will clue us in and say, be prepared, and I will bless you. And that preparation often is a precursor and a necessary precursor for the blessing that God wants to unfold in our lives.
Wow, that's great. And a couple of things just stand out to me from that. First of all, I think we talked briefly last week. Joseph is one of my favorite characters in the Bible just because of what he went through and how he endured all these things and stayed faithful. And then just overnight, God takes him from the prison to being the prime minister of the entire world. But you know what this reminds me of? A lyric to an old song I remember I really liked in college. And the lyric says, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So
yes.
And what I look at, and what that means to me is God doesn't just get us ready like the day before the things happens. He's always preparing us. And we don't know why so many things are happening. Joseph didn't know why he was sold into slavery. He didn't know why he was betrayed by Potiphar after being, a good steward of Potiphar's house, and
yes.
not even taking the temptation of his wife. He was a good man through all this. Yet things keep happening to him. He didn't know why, but God was preparing him so that when something happened where he needed to step up, he was ready at that time. So I think that's telling us that God always has us in a state of being ready. And in these times right now with COVID and with all the things that are going on in the world, I've noticed that many Christians who I admire, you being one of them, have used this time to just expand the ministry, enlarge the ministry, and just really be there for people. And and again, some of the Christians who I've been dealing with have just helped me because some of the things they've been working on for years, they've been using it now to help people. So God had been preparing you and other Christian leaders for this moment so that you could be a source of comfort. And so I just love the idea of God's always putting us in a position to be prepared. And then when something happens, there we go. And we can
well, that's kind of you to say that and describe it that way. And the same is true with you. See, you've been working on things for years, and they have their impact every step of the way, but then they're also a precursor for the next thing. So in this season, God is enlarging your ministry and your teachings and your following, and that's going to continue. And so again, it is interesting how God works. Sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't, but the principles are there, and he does prepare us and he refines us. You know, I didn't cover David's life. I can't cover everybody in a message, but David's life's an extraordinary life of preparation. Even after he's anointed to be the king of Israel, well, ultimately he's running for his life because of the king's jealousy, and literally going through all kinds of refinement and humbling, so that when he finally was, at the time it arrived to come into power and authority, when King Saul died, oh my goodness, here he is, and he's more than prepared. It's amazing how God does that in each of our lives. But he wants us to be practical about it in terms of how we prepare to face calamities that can happen, like fires, like earthquakes, like other things. Being prepared does make a difference. And I think the key for me is, as we do that, I love the fact that Christ is always thinking in an expansive way. It's never just, you know, to protect Jerry Girardo. It's so that I can be there also to protect my family, to protect our church family, and we work together on this. Others are called to do the same thing in their sphere and their relationships, but we want to be that resource for the community. And so this message is actually a further springboard for us now, and we're picking up and really strategizing on how we can better help and be a resource to the community in tough times, be an example, and have more connection with people to share the tangible love of Jesus Christ while we also share the gospel with them. So really an extraordinary time that we're in, and there's opportunities that abound for us to honor Christ by serving him. But let's be prepared and be ready so we don't have to get ready. I love it.
Yep.
Yes.
You don't have to get ready.
Yeah.
Great. So, Pastor Jerry, before we wrap it up, why don't you tell us what is on your heart for this coming message, for the message this Sunday? What do you think?
Yeah, thank you. And so, interestingly enough, one of the things that God is, because of the season we're in, it's a season of challenge and adversity. Yeah. And so I keep coming back to that. And I was thinking about a series on coping with adversity. We've already dealt with that in some other messages, but where the Lord brought me to this week was to have a message on the fact that adversity really is God's proving ground. And he does prepare us, like the story of Job we're going to get into this Sunday. It's an extraordinary story where this man, literally, things happened in a moment. The calamity happened in a moment, and he had no idea why. He wasn't privy to the conversation with God and Satan that we read about at the very beginning of Job. It just happened to him. But God had prepared him in their relationship so that he still trusted in him. And his immediate response was to worship God, right, even when his whole family, all of his children, had been destroyed, and so much more, and to trust in him. So we're going to talk about how adversity happens to be God's proving ground, but we also see how God, in his preparation, will enable us, if we stay true to him and follow him, to really prove out our faith when the adversity hits and increase our testimony and our impact like Job did. God bless him.
Yeah. That's extraordinary, because I can tell you that when adversity hits, my first instinct is not necessarily to start worshiping God. So,
yes.
so Job should be an example to us on that. But I look forward to hearing about that and us talking about it next week. It's going to be great. So I want to encourage everyone listening and watching right now to please subscribe here to the YouTube channel. You can hit the subscription button there. You can hit the notification bell so that you will be notified as soon as these messages come up, and as soon as these videos with Jerry and I occur, you'll get it immediately. And please don't forget to visit lighthousechurchnovato.com. All these messages are there, past messages are there, and you can just spend a lot of time getting some of these great encouraging messages that will help you stay prepared and stay ready during these times. And Pastor Jerry, we'll talk to you next week, and it's been great talking to you again.
Likewise, Ed. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Appreciate this opportunity, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. God bless you.
God bless you. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.